Welcome to Nightjacker. Tonight, I'll share with you 3 of the scariest stories found on Reddit. Turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and get ready, because these tales might keep you awake tonight. The figure at my window. I don't usually write about personal things online, but what happened to me still haunts me to this day. Maybe writing it down will help, or maybe it will just remind me that some things can't be explained. I grew up on my parents' farm. It wasn't much, but it was home. I knew every corner of that land, every creak of the old wooden house, every shadow cast by the barns when the moon rose. When I was 17, just weeks away from turning 18, my parents died in a terrible car accident. They said it was instant, but I've seen the pictures. I know it wasn't. Social services wanted to take me in, but my birthday came before they could do anything. I became an adult overnight, alone on the farm where I had once been a son. The silence of that house without my parents was unbearable at first, but I learned to live with it. I worked the land, kept the livestock, repaired what I could. Life was lonely, but it was life. Then came the first anniversary of their death. That night, I woke up in my upstairs bedroom with the strongest feeling that something was wrong. My heart was pounding before I even opened my eyes. When I finally turned my head, I froze. There, outside my second-story window, was a figure. Its face was pale, pressed close against the glass, staring directly at me. For a second, my brain tried to rationalize. A thief, a neighbor. Maybe I left a ladder by the barn, but there was no ladder, just a sheer 5-meter wall of wood below that window. I grabbed the baseball bat I always kept near my bed. Break-ins weren't unheard of around here, but by the time I stood up, the figure was gone. I ran outside, circled the house, searched every shadow. Nothing. The next morning I checked again. No footprints, no marks. Nothing to suggest anyone had been there. I tried to convince myself I imagined it, but then things started going wrong. My best cow miscarried. All my piglets died within days of each other. My corn, green and strong just a week before, began to wither as if poisoned, even though the weather had been perfect. I watered, I treated, I begged the land to come back to life. It didn't. I barely survived that year. On the second anniversary, I saw it again, the same figure, at the same window, watching, waiting. And the moment it appeared, my farm started to collapse all over again. I called in veterinarians, crop experts, anyone who might help. They had no answers. Finally, in desperation, I turned to something I'd never believed in. An old psychic woman recommended by a neighbor. She came into the house, walked through every room, and then told me something I'll never forget. There is a spirit bound here. It feeds on the life around it. It won't leave until its business is done. When I asked whose spirit, she only shook her head. That is for you to discover. But if you want peace, you must face it directly and help it let go. I didn't believe her, not at first. But as the months dragged on, I started to wonder if she was right. What if it was my parents? What if they had never moved on? Trapped here by something left unsaid. The third anniversary came. I prepared as best I could. The ritual she gave me was simple. A few words to speak and a vial of herbs I had to crush in my hand at the right moment. I wasn't sure I believed in any of it, but I was desperate. That night, I woke again to the same feeling, except this time, the figure wasn't outside. It was inside my room. The stench hit me first. Rot, damp soil, and something metallic like blood. My breath caught in my throat. The figure floated above the floor, its hollow eyes locked on me, its very presence draining the strength from my body. My limbs felt heavy, my chest tight. I knew I was dying just by being in its presence. Summoning every ounce of courage, I whispered the words the psychic had taught me. and crushed the vial in my fist. Everything went black. When I opened my eyes, I was standing in a sunlit field. The air smelled of wildflowers, and in front of me, with her back turned, was my mother. My voice cracked as I called out to her. She turned, her eyes wet with tears. We didn't embrace. We didn't even move closer. We just talked. I told her how angry I had been before she died, how I never forgave her for our last argument. She told me she carried that pain with her into death, that it bound her here. She never wanted to harm me or the farm. She just couldn't leave, not when I still hated her. We cried together. We forgave each other. And then she smiled, so gently, before fading into the light. I woke up in my bed. The morning sun streamed through the window. For the first time in years, the air felt clean. That year, my farm flourished. The crops thrived. The animals were healthy. And every anniversary since, the figure never returned. People still tell me it was all in my head, that grief made me imagine it, that forgiving my mother was what freed me, not her. But sometimes, late at night, I still wake up with the feeling of being watched. And I wonder, what if she wasn't the only one who never left? The 3 knocks at 3 a.m. I moved back into the old house after the divorce, the one at the end of a quiet street where the asphalt dissolves into river fog. The place was smaller than I remembered, and louder too. Wood that never stopped settling, pipes that sighed like a tired chest. I told myself the noises were just age. I told myself a lot of things. What I didn't tell myself, not out loud, was that I avoided the front door after midnight. 3 years before, on a winter night that ate every sound, my younger brother Mark and I had our last fight in this same hallway. It was stupid. Money, pride, the kind of tiny, jagged thing that feels huge when you're exhausted and 20-something. He slammed the door. I locked it. I remember the way the chain clicked. I remember deciding that if he came back to apologize, I wouldn't give in this time. I'd make him wait till morning. At 3 a.m., I woke to 3 slow knocks. Measured, patient. I stared at the ceiling and let them pass. In the morning, the police called. They'd found him downriver. People say grief softens. Mine calcified. I kept my life loud after that. Night shifts, podcasts, friends who never asked about Mark. But when the divorce emptied the house I'd filled with noise, there was nothing left between me and 3 a.m. except drywall and a lock I suddenly hated. The first knock came on the anniversary. I woke without a dream, heart sprinting like it had remembered something before I did. The clock on the nightstand read 3 o'clock exactly. The house was held breath quiet, the way it gets when the refrigerator stops humming and you realize it's been your only company for hours. Then 3, the exact tempo I remembered and pretended I didn't. I told myself it was a branch, a prank, the wind. I padded down the hallway barefoot, every board tattling my weight. At the door I looked through the peephole, the porch, the empty street, the sodium vapor halo of the street lamp leaking into fog. Nothing moved. I unlocked the deadbolt, unhooked the chain, and opened the door to cold. The river smell drifted in, metal and algae and old leaves. I stood there long enough for my skin to goosebump. Nothing. I shut the door, relocked it, and told myself it was a one-off. It wasn't. The next night it came again, 3 a.m. on the dot. The same 3 patient knocks, like someone who knows you're home and isn't in a hurry. I installed a camera beside the door, motion sensor, infrared, the whole thing. I tested it twice. Perfect. At 2:58, I sat on the stairs with the screen open on my phone, watching my own door from 10 feet away like it belonged to someone else. When the clock ticked to 3 o'clock, the live feed hiccuped, a single frame of static like frost on old TV, and then resumed. On the audio track, I caught a tiny shift in the mic. Not a knock exactly, more like the door accepting contact, wood acknowledging wood. The notifications read, "Motion detected," but there was no body, no shape, not even a moth in the IR cone. The knocks were inside the sound and outside the picture. I told myself there were other explanations. Carbon monoxide can make you hear things, right? I bought a detector. It blinked green, indifferent. On the third night, I dusted a thin line of flour across the inside threshold. A stupid idea I hated doing until I did it. When the house fell into that 250 lull that isn't sleep and isn't waking, my cat, the only creature who tolerates me without questions, hopped off the couch and slunk to the hall with her belly low, tail a hooked question mark. She stared at the door and didn't blink. 3 o'clock. The flour stayed white. The chain stayed taut. But a wet, river-cold draft slid under the door and pooled around my ankles. Somewhere in the walls, water ran where there were no pipes. I didn't sleep. At sunrise, I swept the flour. 3 small smudges had formed in it. Not footprints exactly, not distinct enough to photograph, just 3 elliptical damp places spaced like knuckles. I called my mother's sister. We haven't spoken much since the funeral. She listened without interrupting, the way people do when they don't believe you and don't want to say it. "You know what night it is," she said finally. "If you're going to do something, do it tonight." "Do what?" "Open." I did. Twice. "No," she said. "Open." She told me an old story I half remembered from when we were kids in this house, before the river took anything from us, about how the dead can't cross thresholds uninvited, about names as bridges, about how apologies sometimes unlock more than doors. It sounded like something you tell a child to keep him from fearing the dark. It also sounded like the only instruction I had. I set an alarm for 2:57. I put on Mark's old hoodie, the royal one with the torn cuff I hadn't seen since he left it here and then didn't, and stood at the door with my hand on the chain, feeling every beat of my heart in my palm. I practiced the words out loud because my mouth felt strange around them, like a locked hinge you haven't turned in years. At 2:59, the house changed temperature. The night pressed gently, insistently, like a palm on glass. 3 o'clock. I slid the chain free. "Mark," I said, and my voice broke on the name. "Come home." I opened the door. Air moved past me. Not a gust, not wind, but displacement, as if something with shape and memory stepped across. The smell of the river rose up so suddenly my eyes watered. The cat let out a sound I've never heard from her throat before. Not fear exactly, more like the way you'd cry if you remembered being lost as a child and then found. I didn't see him, but I felt the hallway lengthen, the way it did when we were teenagers, and ran at full speed and slammed into the back door just to hear Mom yell. I felt the leftward pull toward the coat hooks we never used. The empty hook on the end creaked. There was a jacket hanging from it, gray, torn cuff. I don't remember crossing the hall, but I remember holding the sleeve, and the sleeve holding me back, an old cotton reflex that made grief feel like body again. I stood there with my forehead against the fabric and said the stupidest, truest sentence I've ever said. I should have opened. The house exhaled. Not loudly, not theatrically, just a settling, a change in pressure, a relief in the boards under my feet. The river smell thinned until all I could smell was dust and my own breath. I left the door open for a long time. The camera's live feed didn't glitch. The audio recorded nothing but a night so quiet, it made your ears ring. The knocks never came back. I kept the jacket on the hook. I bought carbon monoxide detectors for every room because there's always a rational person waiting to live in your head, and you might as well give him toys. I had the wiring checked. I learned the sounds of the house again until they stopped being threats and became a language. Sometimes though, I still wake at 3 with that old tightness in my chest. The one that feels exactly like a hand you love, hesitant on the other side of a door. And when the wood clicks 3 little times as it cools, just the building breathing, that's all. I whisper I'm here, to nobody, to everybody, to the hallway, to the hook that stays full now. And the house, satisfied, goes back to sleep. The Forest Voices. We had planned this trip for weeks. The idea was simple. Hike into the old reserve where we used to camp as teenagers, build a fire, drink a few beers, tell stories, and spend the whole night watching the rare blood moon. For me, it wasn't just nostalgia. It felt like a chance to bring back something we had lost. But as usual, I had a fight with the guys. They never really took me seriously, and when I talked about plans or ideas, they'd laugh or cut me down. That night, the teasing went too far. I stormed off, determined to prove I didn't need them to enjoy the forest. The reserve was vast, nothing like the parks near the city. Here the trees stretched endlessly, the air was heavy, and the silence pressed down. I left the main path and wandered, stubborn and distracted. That's when I noticed a strange pit in the ground. It looked like a sinkhole, perfectly round. I leaned closer to look inside, and the ground collapsed beneath me. The fall was long. I should have died. Instead, I hit the stone floor hard, enough to cut my arm and knock me out cold. When I came to, it was night. The blood moon hung directly above, its crimson light filtering faintly through cracks in the rock. My head throbbed. My arm was bleeding heavily. My phone was destroyed in the fall. I wrapped my arm quickly with a torn piece of my shirt and forced myself up. The cave walls were rough and covered in strange markings. When I brushed against one with my wounded arm, my blood smeared across the symbols. That's when the sounds began. At first it was subtle, scratching, scraping, distant thuds like heavy steps. Then came guttural noises, low growls and screeches that echoed through the chamber. I froze, convinced wild animals had slipped inside. I moved slowly, half crouched, hands against the stone, searching for a way out. At last, I saw a faint slit of moonlight ahead. Relief surged through me until something moved across the opening, blocking the glow for a few seconds. A tall, human-shaped shadow, but its noises were not human. It croaked and gurgled like something drowning. I hid, holding my breath. The shadow lingered, made a dissatisfied grunt, then shuffled away. Only then did I squeeze through the gap and stumble back into the forest. Outside, the world felt even worse. The forest around me was alive with sounds, snapping branches, shrieks that didn't belong to any animal I knew. I tightened the fabric around my wound and pushed forward. The pain was constant, but fear was stronger. I moved carefully, hoping to head in the direction where my friends might still be. That's when my thoughts betrayed me. I kept replaying the fight, how they laughed at me, how stupid I must have looked, and I started thinking, if I die out here, they won't even care. They'll keep drinking around the fire, forgetting me before the night is over. The anger gave me focus, but also distracted me from where I was walking. I didn't see the cliff edge until it was too late. One wrong step, and I was tumbling down the slope. Rocks tore at me. My head slammed against the earth. My leg twisted under me. Somehow, I was still conscious. My body screamed in pain, but worse was the silence that followed. The forest had gone dead quiet. Not a bird, not a rustle. It was like the entire world was holding its breath. Then, slowly, I heard it. Heavy footsteps above me, dislodging gravel, moving down the slope. I looked up and saw it. It was enormous, nearly 2 meters tall, moving upright like a man, but grotesque in every way. Its body was covered in dark fur, its legs bent backwards, ending in hooves. Its arms were long and clawed, fingers tipped with nails like blades. Ribs pressed through its chest as if it hadn't eaten in years. Horns jutted from its skull, curving outward like a stag's. Its mouth opened impossibly wide, inhaling like it was tasting the air. The moon lit up its eyes, enormous, gleaming, inhuman eyes that fixed right on me. The creature bellowed, a deafening, bone-shaking scream, like a siren meant to warn the whole forest. I thought my head would split in two from the sound. And then, replies, dozens of them, answering from deep in the forest. The woods came alive with snapping trees and pounding footsteps. They were coming. I ran. I don't know how. My leg was twisted, my arm was bleeding, my head was spinning. But I ran like death itself was at my heels. Behind me, the forest roared with pursuit. And then, the voices. Not just the creatures, but voices inside my head. They whispered at first, then shouted, each one taunting me, mocking me, repeating my fears. David, David, David. They called my name over and over, until I couldn't tell if it was my mind or the forest itself.
I broke through a line of bushes and slammed directly into someone.
I screamed until I realized it was my friends. Their flashlights blinded me. Their hands grabbed my shoulders. They had come looking after all. They thought I'd gone too far alone, and when I didn't show up, they followed into the woods. The forest went silent. No more voices, no more pounding footsteps, just my friends, real and solid, holding me up. They took me back to camp immediately. Out here, no ambulance would make it through the night. They cleaned and wrapped my wounds as best they could, sat me down by the fire, and tried to calm me. They told me it was just fear, just a head injury, just my imagination playing tricks. But I know what I saw. I know what I heard, and when the fire died low and my eyes started to close, I still heard it faintly, drawn out, whispered, waiting for the night when I am alone again.